two sides. It is both looking at the current and future service requirements as driven by the service directory side, but it's also looking at it from the combination and integration of the socioeconomic information, so that you start to look at demand from two sides rather than one. Integrating that information, looking at the potential space. It's challenging stuff. It's simple in terms of its format, but it's challenging when you take it back into your environments and how you actually have to respond and deal with individuals that not necessarily going to be particularly warm to the idea of delivering this sort of information, or certainly understanding the true financial cost of the property and the space that they occupy in delivering the services. That will come as a shock to people, and it will be information that people maybe don't want to find out. And it is a challenge, but that is the fundamental and necessary information. It builds a picture from gathering the knowledge about the property information at the left through understanding of actually what it costs to the sort of insight of where you might go with it, and the option and appraisal analysis that you can then do in terms of driving the decision-making process. One of the things that we find is running that in parallel with a true risk and reward, looking at the collection or delivery of cashable benefits. So looking at organizations that will actually deliver that service improvement in terms of the property information, but also look at actually generating the budget to pay for those services is important. And I'll talk a wee bit about that in some of the commercial challenges later. The key requirements, it was mentioned today, is speed. The base one. That's what people are saying to us. We need to act quickly. If we wind back the clock 3 years, maybe we would have started then. But people haven't started then. In a lot of cases, they need to start now. But to be able to gather the information in the sort of timing that you're going to be able to start to add the decision making and start to deliver the kind of benefits, it needs to be done with speed. That is a challenge, because a lot of property departments have already been cut 50% of staffing. They've already lost a lot of people. And their ability to provide resources for that are very hard. So the day job gets in the way. Financial cost can get in the way. That's part of the reason why we've gone to the risk and reward model that TerraQuest is proposing. But operating at speed, getting that value, the biggest value and the quickest value you can get out, so making and recognizing what are the early wins, targeting the activity in terms of gathering the information so that you can actually generate the highest level of profit, highest level of benefit in the shortest period of time and at least cost. So those are the challenges, but they're the fundamental requirements that are needed in this space today. So on to mapping the information. You've got your accurate and complete property information. You've got it combined with polygon data from your mapping side. What could you then do with that information from a mapping sense to support this idea of dashboards of clear and concise information? How can you then put that together? What we've done in working with Local Futures, and John Fisher is here today, who's the Chief Executive of Local Futures, and they're an organization that have been developing really a new generation of mapping tools to look at the socioeconomic information. I'll show you some of the outputs from that here. What he's done is to look at bringing together 1,500 indicators gathered from 130 different sources into a format that can be readily used by individual users of the service. What we're working towards is the aspect of then delivering on top of that the property information, so that you can then have the richness of the indicators, of the mapping of the indicators, but then you can actually host your accurate property information over the top of it. Again, as a way of building and adding another layer to the kind of decisions, the kind of options that you can look at, the kind of ways that you can look at information. From the people we've talked to, the people we've shown it to, they believe it's the potential of taking the delivery of property information from property professionals within government to a different place. The way the mapping is set out is a layered, it's a multi-layered approach. Currently, we're looking at the potential of having 3 individual layers. The base layer, the thematic layer, which is then the information that's laid across that base layer, and then on top of that, the property information layer. It will be the first time you've had 3 individual layers like that actually delivered in one solution. It's very innovative stuff. What it is in reality is a wonderful tool that you can use to actually look at the individual economic, socioeconomic information within your area, and then to host the property information on top of it. And I'll show you some of the aspects of that. That's a screenshot of the service, looking at that sort of base information. It's the base layer information, gives you all of the infrastructure of the UK. The potential is that you can, at that level, bring in a thematic layer. That individual thematic layer is a representation of the percentage of people over 65 within the UK in individual areas. You can zoom in on those layers, really to a very high level of granularity. As you see on the left, the granularity of that particular picture of South Tyneside is actually still quite high. You can actually drive in at a great level of detail. Again, that's the base information, but you can then zoom in and layer on top of that base information the over 65 information. It gives you the granularity of what the socioeconomic picture is of people over 65 within the South Tyneside area. And again, that is a reasonable level of granularity, but as you see on the left, you still have a lot of zoom to go. So the potential is, the way that the product is set up is that you can slide in, they're called Slippy Maps, you can actually slide in information over the base layer, but you can also fade that information in and out so that you can actually still see the infrastructure, the base layer information underneath, but then you can superimpose on top of that with a greater level of clarity the thematic information that you're looking for. That's the same area in terms of South Tyneside, but that's looking at changing the thematic layer. That's bringing in the OA information, so the output area information. So looking at the economic output of people within the South Tyneside area, looking at the areas of that. Again, talking about the fact that you can fade this information in and out. So as well as still having the OA information, you can actually fade it out to the extent that you can see the infrastructure underneath. What we're looking at is the potential of then hosting property information over the top of that. And we've actually achieved that. We've got a long way to go in terms of integrating some of the dashboard information, but we've actually achieved it, and it is available for viewing outside. John is here, he has the product. He has it layered with property information on top. It's actually from Stockport, the information. But it's there on our exhibition stand, and please come and see it and play with it, have a look at it in terms of the information. But the potential is that property information would then be hosted on top of the maps, on top of the thematic criteria, and you can then touch on individual properties and see the dashboard information about that property. So if you're looking to see all of the properties, you'll be able to say, okay, show me all of the properties that deliver a particular service within the local authority. Show me all of those properties. Then show me the individual performance, both financial and space utilization and other performance of those buildings within those areas. It allows you to look at if there is a change you can make in terms of the way the buildings are used in certain areas and how they relate to the market that sits underneath them in terms of thematic information. So that's where it's going in terms of mapping. And as I've said, it is available, it is being built today. So come and look at it in the stand. I think it's a very exciting way of bringing the accurate property information that you can collect then into a situation where you can actually look at it and use it. So the commercial challenge, I've made a number of statements in terms of what I've said. I've said that better information can drive more options, more decisions, and ultimately they will be better decisions. It will drive more and significant benefits. Income generation, operating cost reduction, capital receipts. There is the potential that these decisions can actually mean that. If I'm saying that on one hand, why would you as property professionals not turn around and provide the challenge to the supply community, which is link those two things together and provide a true risk and reward? That's what TerraQuest does today. We offer a true risk and reward approach to gathering that property information of portraying it and hosting it and bringing it back to you in these sorts of way in terms of the mapping, but doing it on the basis of running a benefit realization program in parallel to that, of maximizing some of the benefit and taking the risk that we will actually achieve those sorts of levels of benefit. And if we don't, you don't pay us for all of our services. So I think that's the financial challenge. The procurement routes are there. You know, there is the GISS framework, part of the old OGC buying solutions, that is there as a framework that you can buy these services through. ESPO, another framework that we won positions on, both rural and urban positions, that again are available to doing this. So there is routes to providing these services that have reasonable procurement costs and can be done in reasonable timing. Why TerraQuest? TerraQuest, part of Mears, which gives us the financial strength, but ultimately it's about the fact that we've spent the last 40 years in the property business. We have really two aspects to the organization. One side's built around business process, and the other side's built around asset management. We've got a lot of highly skilled individuals that are, you know, everything from the people that collect the data to the people that understand the kind of dynamic decisions that you might make inside the organization. We've brought together a lot of property professionals rather than consultants, rather than individuals that have come from that sort of background, private sector background. We've actually built a number of property professionals that have been in senior positions within government and have been there and done something. And I like to call it been there and actually done something different, because they've actually come out with quite significant results, like Karen Stockport, Malcolm Williams, and Worcester County Council and others. So we believe we've got that. We've also put together tactical resource, because what we're offering is the option to actually come in and provide this as a service to you, as an end-to-end service, rather than requiring you to put very tight-strapped resources in terms of actually delivering it. And then finding the benefits to actually pay for it. The provenance side, it's the same one as you saw earlier, but there's quite right. So, you know, some interesting things there. Department of Transport. We provided mapping for all of the assets within the Department of Transport, some 80,000 assets. We had to find them, we had to identify the information regarding it, and then we had to bring it in terms of electronically mapping that information. Then recording the information on EPIMS. One of the things we did alongside that was actually saying that EPIMS really didn't do enough in terms of the functionality. So we actually added layers of functionality on top of EPIMS that you know, Department of Transport use it, but everybody could use that within government. Government has paid for it. It's available for everybody. But actually looking at providing a richer analysis of information in EPIMS, as well as polygon data, so all of the information that's gone on from the DFT is polygon information, and therefore making that information available to local authorities as they want to look at it from that aspect of actually combining information about estates. You know, it is there. I know it's still difficult sometimes to extract it and get it out, but it is there. Interestingly, within the 18 months we were working with Department of Transport doing that, we identified £25 million worth of benefit that came from looking at things they didn't know they had, to things that they knew they had but didn't know what they could do with them. And we've actually generated, we've made income. There's generated income of some £800,000 a year. We've generated capital receipts of about £2.5 million, and we've generated operation cost savings that govern the rest. So about 25 million. With Taylor Wimpey, we looked at mapping all of their current information, but also looking at the completeness of it from a point of view of going back in all of the orphaned names that were used or orphaned information that was there in terms of everybody that they had been or had been brought into the organization over a period of time. We generated £50 million on their asset, their balance sheet, of additional property they did not know they owned that they now want to develop. We generated £10 million worth of capital receipts from properties that they didn't know they owned that they sold. So there's significant benefits to be had in this, and that's what drives our thinking in terms of we can offer risk and reward to people to get this started, to get this going, because I think the benefits that will come from it will be significant. And that's me. Thank you.